make pleasure a priority. Yeah, because then your performance will rise. And know that in the next week, big shifts will happen. Why? Because you just touched your real power.
Who is Nico?
Well, I'm a weirdo. No, I've been interested in psychology since I was 14 because I was a very, let's say I was very a boy. I had a hard time creating empathy. I didn't understand nothing of other people and myself. So I went into psychology, in psychological books, and at the same time I wanted to feel stronger, so I went to martial arts. So there was this dual stream kept going. So when I was old enough, I went to university, became a master's in psychology, first specialized in organizational psychology, but then wanted more depth, and then went into performance psychology because I was an athlete. And then I started working with athletes, but saw that they had so much trauma, so then went to trauma release. But then it was so negative, so then I went into acceptance commitment therapy, which is more, okay, actions, how can we get out of there? And then I thought, but still not enough, so then I depth my knowledge about positive psychology. And then along the way I found hypnosis, which is really powerful because it helps you to accelerate your learning process in ways that very few other things can. And so throughout the way, and then after my fight career, that stopped because I forced my body too hard. Even if I didn't know the knowledge of not doing it, I still did it, I'm a boss, I'm a fighter. And I broke my arms 3 times and still won. I ruptured my retina 6 times and then I had to stop. But it saved my brain, a little bit, And so then I started working with, first with top athletes. I had several world champions in Formula 2, in Muay Thai, in Jiu-Jitsu that I worked with. I helped them to get the mind straight and to perform better. And to do it in a way in which they don't get that adrenal dump, that valley after the peak, And then, but slowly but surely, like some entrepreneurs and some executives started, and friends of me started talking with me, referring me people, and then slowly I started to work with, business people, CEOs, executives, high-level sales reps, people who have high pressure. And just now, I'm on a mission to teach people that you don't need to just grind it. Every once in a while, of course, but not all the time, because you're going to exhaust your body. You're going to miss great opportunity. I want people to make pleasure and performance intertwined. Because when you look at the stress response, which is adrenaline and cortisol, of course, and then when you get closer to your goal, dopamine, which motivates you to go on. So it's like pleasure, dopamine, and then stress, cortisol and adrenaline, or epinephrine if you're American, work together. But not only that, at the same time oxytocin goes up, because it makes sense. Oxytocin, the hugging hormone, helps you to connect with other people. Of course, when there's a tiger there, you better work together with other people or you die when you're low. So it helps. So when you then get connected with other people, your nervous system starts to calm down a bit. So you can have a dual activation where you start to relax a bit more into that intensity of the situation. And that's what we need now more than ever in these times of COVID-19, where it's a tiger that stays there. So we have to really find ways, even if we can't hug, to connect with each other. And we can, for example, use imagination, where we hug each other over the thing, and you might think that's stupid, but it is not, because your brain does not know the difference. I'm an athlete, and I was specialized in sports psychology, and they use visualization. You know why? Because neural scans have shown that the same neural patterns get activated when you imagine something or when you do it. It's beautiful. And so you can use this even when you live alone to hug the people you love. And you see them then on the screen, and you imagine how you feel their chest to your chest. What will happen? Oxytocin level goes up. Serotonin levels, like the calm hormone, the dominance hormone, the hormone that you're in control, gets up. So use those things. And I have I work with people, it's a step-by-step process where we go through a whole range of things, whereby you learn to get in touch with your needs, with your values, with your emotions. Learn how to communicate in a way that does not create conflict. No, quite opposite, that creates more intimacy, more connection, for sure when you have two conflicting needs. But when you have two conflicting desires, it's because the needs under there are not being looked at. So when people I want this, I want this, you want to force each other to do something because you're not talking about the needs. So when you can learn to talk about the needs, then things start to change.
In this day and age with like social media and like mental illness, like where do you see people going kind of, not say wrong, but like in the wrong direction with their own mind, and what advice could you give to help them with that?
Well, a lot of us have learned to focus on the negative. From a very young age, when we go to school, we do not really get celebrated unless we have a 9 or a 10. What gets focused on is the red, what we do wrong. So we learn, and then we get afraid, because then if, for example, we have less than a 5, ooh, it's bad. And for a child, that means you are bad. Not your work is bad, you're bad. Even if you say it's your work, no. It didn't work, no. So there's a bunch of judgments. And so for a child, when the parents or a caregiver or a teacher says such things, it's very painful. Because in primal times, when you were criticized, you came closer to being rejected by the group, and that meant certain death. So we learn to really focus. We think we get trained to focus on all the negative, because then we can become great. But research has shown time and time again that the people who are on the top, the people who are the most happy, the people who are the most successful, the people who have the most interesting and fulfilling relationships, they have it reversed. They focus on the positive. They are optimistic. They have a growth mindset. So instead of focusing on what happened to them, for example, in these COVID-19 times, we're all locked down. Instead of focusing on the things you can't control, they say, okay, support the things I can't control. If I go out, I get fined. What can I do now? How can I use this situation to grow? How can I use this situation to grow as a person, as a partner, as a parent, as a friend, as a son or daughter? So if you take that, if you take the things that you learned, to take that mindset, that regardless of what happens outside, you can be free. But to do that, you have to know very well what are your needs. And we don't get taught this. We very often learn to suppress our needs, because otherwise, if we ask for our needs, we get punished, or we don't get so much attention, or we think we have to please others before they will please us. And so we dissociate from our feelings, from our bodies, and that gets magnified by sitting in a school on our ass. We can't move, we can't connect, we have to suppress our needs. Or later, or with the parents, we want to explore, we want to do things. You can't do that, it's dangerous. So you get taught from a very young age that your own natural needs are not important, are dangerous. And so we have to retrain yourself to really feel your body and feel your emotions, see what is actually there.
So lastly, where can people find you?
Well, you can go to Instagram, Nico_Verrezen. That's Verrezen is Verresen. Or just on Facebook, Nico Verrezen. That's the easiest. Yeah.
And to finish off, what's one mantra or quote that comes out of your heart?
Make pleasure a priority. Yeah. Because then your performance will rise. Don't be hedonistic and just do only things for now pleasure. But don't forget to enjoy the process of living now.